Even while drowning herself, Jasmine stopped to save a stranger she didn't know could change everything. A mother stood at a Walmart checkout counting coins while strangers rolled their eyes and waited for her to fail. But when a billionaire glanced into her cart, one small item stopped him cold: a child's asthma inhaler. What happened next would uncover a secret wound he had carried for decades, connect two strangers through the same painful sacrifice, and change the future of a family that was running out of hope. Because sometimes, the smallest thing in a shopping cart can reveal the biggest story no one else sees. The Walmart on the edge of Houston always seemed louder on Friday evenings. Shopping carts rattled across worn tile floors. Children begged for candy near the registers. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like tired insects that had forgotten how to rest. Outside, the Texas sky was turning orange as the sun slipped behind rows of apartment buildings and highway signs. Jasmine Carter stood in checkout lane 7, trying not to shake, trying not to breathe too loudly, trying not to notice the growing line behind her. The total glowed from the register screen: $41.83. For a moment, she simply stared at the numbers. $41.83. She already knew the amount would be close. She had done the math 3 times before leaving her apartment, then twice more while walking through the store, then again while standing in line. But numbers had a cruel way of changing when life got involved. A sale price didn't ring up. Tax appeared where she forgot it would. A few cents became $1. $1 became a problem, and a problem became humiliation. Jasmine swallowed hard. "1 second," she whispered to the cashier. The woman behind the register nodded politely. Jasmine reached into her worn canvas purse and pulled out a small zippered pouch, then another, then another. The first pouch held quarters. The second held dimes and nickels. The third held pennies she had counted at her kitchen table after midnight, while her children slept. She opened the first pouch. The sound of coins spilling onto the counter seemed impossibly loud. Clink, clink, clink. Every head in line appeared to turn. Heat flooded her cheeks. She kept counting. $20, $25, $30. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, from exhaustion. She had worked until almost 1 in the morning at the community kitchen downtown, then delivered grocery orders most of the day, then rushed home to check homework, then came here. She was tired enough to cry, too tired to actually do it. A sigh came from somewhere behind her, then another. Then someone muttered something she couldn't quite hear. Jasmine kept her eyes on the coins. "Don't look up. Don't react. Just finish." The cashier began counting with her. A man several places back shook his head dramatically. Another customer checked his watch. A teenage girl raised her phone slightly. Jasmine caught the reflection from the screen. Recording. Of course. For a second, she wanted to disappear. Not because she was paying with coins, because Noah and Ava were watching. Noah stood beside the cart, 9 years old, too serious for his age. His dark eyes watched everything, every sigh, every impatient glance, every whisper. Ava sat in the child seat, 6 years old, small, curly-haired, holding her stuffed rabbit against her chest. Her breathing sounded slightly rough today. Not dangerous, not yet. But Jasmine knew the signs, which was why the blue inhaler sitting in her cart mattered so much. The cashier finished counting. Her expression softened. "You're $3.12 short." The words landed like a brick. $3.12. Not 30, not 20, $3. Jasmine closed her eyes briefly. Just once, then opened them again. Around her, silence seemed to grow heavier. Everyone was watching now, waiting, judging, recording. She looked down at the conveyor belt. Milk, bread, peanut butter, cough medicine, school notebooks, children's socks, and the inhaler. Every item belonged to Noah or Ava. Nothing belonged to her. Not the shampoo she needed. Not the coffee she hadn't bought in weeks. Not the winter gloves she kept postponing. Nothing. Her hand slowly moved toward the inhaler. The small blue package suddenly felt heavier than everything else combined. Ava noticed immediately. "Mom?" Jasmine forced a smile. "It's okay, baby." Her fingers touched the box. Maybe they could wait another week. Maybe Ava wouldn't need it. Maybe... "Mom." The voice came from beside her. "Noah." She looked at him. The boy wasn't looking at the inhaler. He was looking at her, and somehow that hurt more. "We can put it back," he said quietly. Jasmine's heart cracked. "No. It's okay." His voice remained calm. Too calm. The voice of a child learning how to carry burdens that belong to adults. "Ava will be okay." Ava looked confused. Noah reached over and squeezed his sister's hand. "We can wait." Jasmine felt something tighten in her chest. Children weren't supposed to understand sacrifice this young. Children weren't supposed to see fear behind grocery math. Children weren't supposed to comfort their parents. But Noah did, because life had forced him to. And Jasmine hated that. Absolutely hated it. She picked up the inhaler. The cashier looked away respectfully. The people behind her shifted. The phone camera remained pointed toward her. Then a new voice spoke. Calm, deep, unexpected. "Don't put that back." Jasmine turned. So did everyone else. A tall man stood directly behind her. Gray jacket, dark jeans, nothing flashy, nothing that suggested wealth. Just another customer holding a few items in a shopping basket. At least that's what he appeared to be. His expression wasn't pitying, wasn't judgmental, wasn't impatient. He was staring at something inside the cart. Not at Jasmine, not at the coins, at the inhaler. The man looked strangely pale, as if he'd seen a ghost. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then he took a step closer. And Jasmine noticed something unusual. His eyes. They weren't focused on the present. They were looking through it. Like he was standing in Walmart while simultaneously seeing somewhere else. Somewhere years away. The cashier cleared her throat. "Sir?" The man didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the small blue inhaler. Jasmine felt a strange chill run through her. Why was he looking at it like that? What could possibly matter about a child's inhaler? The man finally blinked. For the first time, he seemed to return to the room. His eyes moved from the inhaler to Ava, then to Noah, then to Jasmine. And something inside his expression changed. Not sympathy, recognition, as if he knew them, as if he'd lived this moment before. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The checkout line remained frozen. Outside, the last sunlight disappeared from the Texas sky. And William Harrington, the billionaire whose name appeared on hospital buildings, business magazines, and billion-dollar corporate reports, stood completely motionless in a Walmart checkout lane. Because 27 years earlier, in another store not far from here, he had watched his own mother reach for the exact same kind of inhaler. And he had never forgotten what happened next. Not for a single day. Not for a single breath. And now history was standing right in front of him, holding a blue box, waiting for an answer, waiting for someone to decide whether a little girl would go home with medicine tonight, or without it. And William suddenly realized he couldn't walk away. Not this time. Not again. The words echoed inside William Harrington's head like a distant bell. For a moment, The Walmart checkout lane disappeared. The fluorescent lights, the impatient customers, the cashier. The phones pointed toward Jasmine. All of it faded into the background, because all he could see was the little blue inhaler sitting on the conveyor belt, and the woman reaching for it, the same way his mother once had. Jasmine looked at the stranger standing behind her. He wasn't dressed like a wealthy man. No expensive suit, no security, no designer shopping bags. Just a middle-aged man holding a basket with bottled water, cereal, and a loaf of bread. But something about him felt different. His eyes weren't judging her. They weren't pitying her either. They looked wounded, as if seeing her pain had reopened an old scar. The silence stretched. Then William slowly stepped forward. "Please," he said softly. "Don't put it back." Jasmine tightened her grip on the inhaler. She knew that tone. The concerned stranger, the well-meaning observer, the person who felt sorry for her for 30 seconds before going home and forgetting she existed. "No," she replied quietly. "We'll be okay." William glanced toward Ava. The little girl was hugging her stuffed rabbit. Even from where he stood, he could hear the faint whistle in her breathing. Not dangerous yet, but familiar. Too familiar. His chest tightened. The cashier shifted uncomfortably. The line behind them continued growing. A man wearing a Houston Astros cap rolled his eyes dramatically. "Come on," he muttered. "Some of us have places to be." Another customer laughed. Jasmine lowered her head. The humiliation burned hotter now. Not because of herself, because Noah and Ava were hearing it. She could survive embarrassment. A mother learned how. But watching your children witness it? That was different. That stayed with them. Noah looked back at the line. His jaw tightened. At 9 years old, he already understood what adults were saying without saying. He turned toward his mother. "It's okay, Mom." There it was again. That sentence. That impossible sentence. The sentence children were never supposed to learn. "It's okay." The words landed harder than any insult from the crowd. Jasmine forced herself to smile. "Baby, don't worry." But Noah wasn't looking at her. His eyes were moving across the conveyor belt. Counting. Calculating. Trying to solve a problem no child should have to solve. William noticed, and something inside him twisted. Because 27 years earlier, another boy had done the exact same thing. A boy standing beside his mother. A boy counting groceries. A boy trying to figure out which item mattered least. A boy named William. The memory hit him hard. His mother standing under bright supermarket lights. Her tired hands. The smell of rain on her coat. The inhaler she'd quietly removed from their cart. The cough he'd hidden because he knew they couldn't afford medicine. The shame. The helplessness. He blinked and forced himself back into the present. Jasmine was already setting the inhaler aside. No. His body moved before his mind finished thinking. He stepped closer to the register. "Put it back." Jasmine turned sharply. Her eyes flashed. Not anger, pride. The kind that survives even when everything else has been taken away. "Sir," she said carefully, "I appreciate it, but I didn't ask for help." William nodded. "I know." "Then please don't." The cashier looked between them nervously. The line had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. William looked down at the groceries. Milk, bread, peanut butter, juice boxes, children's vitamins, school notebooks, a package of socks, cold medicine, the inhaler, nothing else. His eyes moved across the belt again, and then again. His stomach dropped. There wasn't a single item for Jasmine. Not one. No coffee, no shampoo, no makeup, no snacks, no comfort food, no lunch, no dinner, nothing. Every dollar she had was going toward her children, every coin she'd counted, every penny she'd saved, every sacrifice for them. The realization hit harder than the inhaler, because he suddenly understood something. She wasn't standing here buying groceries. She was standing here disappearing, piece by piece, the way his mother had disappeared, skipping meals, skipping necessities, skipping herself, until there was almost nothing left. William swallowed. The store suddenly felt colder. Jasmine followed his gaze. She knew exactly what he had noticed, and somehow that made everything worse, because now a stranger knew the truth she worked so hard to hide, the truth that every mother like her understood. When money ran out, Mom was always the first thing removed from the budget. First the coffee, then the shampoo, then the winter coat, then meals, then sleep, then dreams, then pieces of yourself. Until one day, there wasn't much left. Only responsibility, only survival, only love. Ava tugged gently on Jasmine's sleeve. "Mommy?" Jasmine immediately softened. "Yeah, baby? Are we still getting pancakes tomorrow?" The question was innocent, completely innocent, but it hit like a punch. Noah looked away. The cashier lowered her eyes. Jasmine smiled anyway. The same smile mothers have been wearing for generations. The one built from exhaustion and hope. "Maybe." Ava grinned. "Okay." The little girl returned to hugging her rabbit, satisfied, trusting, certain her mother would figure it out, because mothers always did. William felt something crack inside him. His mother used to smile exactly like that. The same smile, the same lie, the same determination, the same impossible love. Outside the front windows, evening shadows stretched across the parking lot. The Texas sky had turned deep purple. Inside Walmart, nobody spoke, not even the impatient customers. For the first time, they were truly looking at Jasmine. Not as an inconvenience, not as a delay, not as someone counting coins, as a mother, a tired mother trying to keep two children safe. William slowly set his basket down. Then he looked directly at the cashier. "How much is the total again?" Jasmine immediately shook her head. "No." William didn't look at her. "How much?" The cashier hesitated. $41.83. William nodded once, then reached into his pocket. Jasmine felt panic rise in her chest. Not because she hated kindness, because kindness often came with witnesses, with stories, with conditions, with humiliation disguised as generosity. "I said no." William finally looked at her, and what she saw there stopped her. There was no superiority, no savior complex, no performance, just grief. Raw grief. The kind that doesn't disappear with money, the kind that survives decades. For a brief second, William wasn't looking at Jasmine Carter. He was looking at someone else, someone long gone, someone he had failed. And that frightened him, because suddenly he realized this moment wasn't about groceries anymore. It wasn't about $41.83. It wasn't even about the inhaler. It was about a memory, a wound, a promise that had never been fulfilled. And for reasons he couldn't explain, Jasmine Carter had somehow stepped directly into the center of it. William opened his wallet. The cashier froze. The line watched. Jasmine stood perfectly still, and somewhere deep inside William Harrington, a 27-year-old memory finally began waking up. A memory he had spent decades trying to outrun. A memory that started with an inhaler and ended with a funeral. a memory he had never told anyone, not even himself. Until now. William's fingers tightened around his wallet. The Walmart checkout lane blurred. The sounds around him seemed to drift farther away. A crying toddler somewhere near customer service. A shopping cart rattling over cracked tile. The soft beep of scanners at nearby registers. Everything felt distant, muted, because a memory had finally broken through, and once it started, he couldn't stop it. 27 years earlier. Houston. A different grocery store. A different checkout lane. The same feeling. His mother stood under harsh fluorescent lights wearing a denim jacket with frayed cuffs. She was 36 years old, but looked 50. Not because of age, because poverty ages people differently. It carves worry into faces. It bends shoulders. It steals sleep. It leaves marks no mirror can fully explain. William remembered standing beside her. 9 years old, skinny, asthmatic, holding a box of cereal against his chest. He remembered the smell of rainwater on her jacket, the ache in his lungs, the cough he tried to hide, and the blue inhaler sitting on the conveyor belt. The exact same shade of blue as Ava's. The total that day had been $34 and some change. His mother had counted bills, then coins, then more coins. The cashier waited. The line grew longer. People sighed. Someone complained. Someone laughed. William remembered every second. Because children never forget moments when their parents are hurting. They carry those moments forever. His mother came up short, only a few dollars. Not much. Just enough. Just enough to create a choice. William could still see her eyes moving across the groceries. Milk, bread, eggs, peanut butter, the inhaler. Then she quietly picked up the inhaler. No drama, no tears, no complaint, just acceptance. The kind that broke your heart because it was so practiced. "We'll get it next week, baby." Those were the words she'd used. William had nodded, pretended it was okay, pretended he wasn't scared, pretended he couldn't hear the wheezing inside his own chest. Children did that. They lied for their parents, just like parents lied for their children. The inhaler stayed behind. 3 days later, he woke up gasping for air. His mother drove him to the emergency room in a truck that barely ran. Rain hammered the windshield. She kept one hand on the wheel and one hand on his shoulder, telling him to breathe, telling him to stay awake, telling him everything would be okay. She was terrified. He knew it now. Back then, he didn't. Back then, he only knew she sounded scared. The doctors stabilized him. They saved him. But something changed inside William after that. Not because he almost died, because he saw his mother cry. For the first time. Not when bills piled up. Not when landlords threatened eviction. Not when she worked double shifts. Not when his father disappeared. The thing that finally broke her was a blue inhaler she couldn't afford. That moment never left him. Not when he earned his first $1,000. Not when he earned his first $1,000,000. Not when he became one of the wealthiest healthcare executives in Texas. Not ever. The memory followed him everywhere. A shadow, a debt, a promise. One day, he'd take care of her. One day she'd never have to choose between medicine and food. One day she'd finally rest. One day. But life hadn't waited. His mother died at 53. Heart failure. A tiny apartment. An aging refrigerator. Bills stacked neatly on a kitchen table. William was already successful by then. Already making more money than she had ever imagined. But not successful enough. Not fast enough. Not soon enough. 3 years too late. That number haunted him. 3 years. 3 years between becoming rich and losing the only person who would have cared. The line at Walmart returned slowly. The memory faded. The fluorescent lights came back. The customers, the cashier, the children. Jasmine, still standing there, still holding the inhaler. William looked at her differently now, not as a stranger, as a warning, a reminder, a second chance he never expected to receive. Across from him, Jasmine noticed the look on his face. It unsettled her. She had seen sympathy before, judgment too, pity, condemnation, fake kindness, real kindness. She knew the difference. What she saw in this man's eyes wasn't any of those things. It looked like grief, deep grief, the kind people carry for years, maybe decades, the kind that never fully heals. The cashier finally broke the silence. "Sir?" William blinked. The present rushed back. The line was waiting. Jasmine was waiting. Everyone was waiting. He pulled a debit card from his wallet. Simple. Dark blue. No gold lettering. Nothing flashy. Just a card. Jasmine immediately shook her head. No. William looked at her. "It's okay. It isn't." Her voice remained steady, firm, proud. A voice built from years of standing alone. "You don't owe me anything." "I know." "Then don't." For a second, nobody spoke. William understood. More than she realized. Because his mother would have said the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Poverty took many things. Pride wasn't usually one of them. Sometimes it was all people had left. William slowly lowered the card, then surprised even himself. "My mother used to buy asthma medicine with coins." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Jasmine froze. The cashier stopped moving. Even the customers seemed quieter. William looked at Ava. She couldn't always afford it. His voice sounded different now, softer, older, like someone talking to a ghost. One time she had to leave it behind. Jasmine's grip tightened around the inhaler. Something shifted. Not trust. Not yet. But understanding. The kind that appears when pain recognizes pain. William wasn't trying to save her. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't performing. He was remembering. And somehow that felt different. Ava coughed softly. The sound snapped everyone back into reality. William looked at the cashier, then at Jasmine, then at Noah. The boy was watching him carefully, studying him, trying to decide whether he was safe, whether he was real, whether adults could be trusted. William recognized that look too. He had worn it once, long ago. The billionaire took a slow breath, then placed the card on the counter. Not dramatically, not like a hero, just quietly. Like a man settling an old debt. "Please." Jasmine looked at him, then at Ava, then at Noah. Her throat tightened. The room suddenly felt smaller. For years, she had survived by herself, worked, sacrificed, endured, accepted help only when there was absolutely no other choice. Because help often came with conditions, with judgment, with stories people told afterward. But this felt different. Not charity. Something else. Something harder to define. The cashier looked between them, waiting. Jasmine's eyes filled briefly. Not enough for tears, just enough to sting. Then she slowly lowered the inhaler back onto the conveyor belt. The cashier immediately scanned it. Beep. The sound echoed through William's chest. 27 years late, but somehow exactly on time. The rest of the groceries followed. Milk, bread, juice, medicine, notebooks, socks, one by one. The total remained $41.83. William inserted the card. The machine processed. Approved. A tiny green message appeared on the screen. Such a small thing. A transaction. Less money than he spent on coffee during a business meeting. Yet it felt heavier than multi-million-dollar contracts, because money had finally done something useful. For once. The receipt printed. The cashier handed it over. Neither William nor Jasmine reached for it immediately. For a moment, they simply stood there. Two strangers connected by something neither fully understood. Then Jasmine spoke. Quietly. "Thank you." William nodded. Nothing more. No speech. No business card. No introduction. No mention of who he was. Just a nod. Because some moments became smaller when explained. Noah grabbed one of the grocery bags. Ava held her rabbit. Jasmine gathered the rest. Then she turned toward the exit. The automatic doors slid open. Cool evening air drifted inside. William watched them walk away. And for the first time in 12 years, he felt something he hadn't expected. Not sadness. Not guilt. Hope. Tiny. Fragile. Dangerous. But hope. Yet as Jasmine and her children disappeared into the parking lot, one question refused to leave him. Why did she look so much like the woman he had spent 27 years trying to apologize to? And why did it suddenly feel like this story wasn't over? Not even close. William stood beside checkout lane 7 long after Jasmine and her children disappeared through the automatic doors. The receipt was still sitting near the register. The cashier cleared her throat gently. "Sir?" William blinked. The moment broke. The fluorescent lights returned. The crowd began moving again. Shopping carts rolled forward. Conversations restarted. Life continued. But something inside him remained standing in that moment. Watching a mother count coins. Watching a little boy volunteer to sacrifice something he shouldn't have had to sacrifice. Watching a little girl who didn't yet understand how close she had come to going home without medicine. William picked up his basket. The cashier handed him his receipt. That was very kind. He offered a small smile. It wasn't kindness. The cashier frowned slightly. William looked toward the exit doors. It was something I should have done a long time ago. She didn't understand. How could she? Neither did he. Not completely. He walked toward the parking lot. Outside, the Texas evening had settled into darkness. Streetlights painted pools of gold across the asphalt. Rainwater from an earlier shower reflected neon signs and headlights. The air smelled faintly of wet concrete and gasoline. William spotted Jasmine immediately. Not because he was looking for her, because she stood out. Not through appearance, through effort. She was loading groceries into a silver sedan that looked older than Noah. The paint had faded. The rear bumper was held together with tape. One taillight had a spiderweb crack running through it. The car looked tired, like its owner. Jasmine lifted bags carefully, making sure the bread wouldn't get crushed, making sure the milk stayed upright, making sure every dollar stretched as far as possible. Noah carried 2 bags despite being small for his age. Ava held her stuffed rabbit and watched. The scene was ordinary, painfully ordinary, and somehow that made it harder to look away. William slowed his steps, not close enough to intrude, not close enough to be noticed, just far enough to observe. Jasmine opened the back door. Noah climbed inside. Ava followed. The grocery bags filled the seat beside them. Then something happened. Something small, something nobody else would have noticed. Noah reached into one of the bags, pulled out a package of crackers, opened it, then immediately held one toward his mother. The gesture was automatic, instinctive, the kind children learn when they grow up watching sacrifice. "You want one?" Jasmine froze, just for a second, then smiled. The smile hit William harder than anything that had happened inside Walmart, because he'd seen that smile before, many years ago, in another parking lot, on another tired face. "No, baby." Her voice was gentle. "Mom already ate." William stopped walking. The world seemed to tilt slightly. No. Not just similar. The exact same words. The exact same words his mother had used. Thousands of times. Mom already ate. He could hear it now. Rain tapping apartment windows. The hum of an old refrigerator. His mother's voice, and Mom already ate. Go ahead. You eat. Every time he believed her. Until he was older. Until he noticed untouched plates, skipped meals, coffee instead of breakfast, water instead of dinner, love disguised as fullness, sacrifice disguised as satisfaction. Mom already ate. The biggest lie of his childhood, and the most beautiful one. William's chest tightened. Across the parking lot, Noah nodded and began eating, completely convinced, completely trusting, completely unaware. Jasmine closed the car door. The moment disappeared, but for William, it lingered, because now he knew. The groceries hadn't been the story. The inhaler hadn't been the story. The coins hadn't been the story. The story was Jasmine herself. A woman quietly disappearing piece by piece so her children could remain whole. The same story he'd watched consume his mother. The same story he'd been powerless to stop. His hands curled into fists, not from anger, from helplessness, the kind that money couldn't erase. Because for all his wealth, for all his success, for all the hospitals and foundations and buildings carrying his name, he had never managed to save the one person he wanted to save. The silver sedan pulled out of the parking space. Its headlights swept briefly across the lot. Then it disappeared into evening traffic. William watched until the taillights vanished. Only then did he realize he was standing motionless in the middle of the parking lot. The wind moved across the asphalt. A shopping cart rolled loose somewhere nearby. For several seconds, he simply stood there, thinking, remembering, grieving. Then he pulled out his phone. The screen illuminated his face. He scrolled to a familiar contact. Margaret Collins, his attorney, his advisor. One of the few people he trusted completely. The phone rang twice. "William?" Her voice sounded surprised. It was nearly 8 o'clock. "I need a favor." Silence. Margaret immediately recognized his tone. This wasn't business. This wasn't corporate. This was personal. What happened? William looked toward the road where Jasmine had disappeared. "I met someone." Margaret laughed softly. "That sounds unusually dramatic." "I'm serious." The humor vanished. "Okay." William took a breath. "I need information." "What kind?" "Everything." A pause. Then Margaret spoke carefully. "William, you know I can't just investigate random people because you feel curious. This isn't curiosity." His voice came out sharper than intended. He immediately softened. "Sorry." The silence returned. Margaret waited. Finally, William spoke. "There was a woman at Walmart." Not the sentence Margaret expected. A woman? Single mother. He glanced down at the receipt still folded in his hand. She was paying for groceries with coins. Margaret remained quiet, listening. William continued. She had 2 kids. So? William closed his eyes. For a moment, he almost said it. Almost explained everything. The inhaler. The memory. The words Mom already ate. The ghost of his mother standing in a Walmart parking lot. Instead, he simply said, "She's living the same life my mother lived." The silence on the other end changed. Margaret knew about his mother, knew the wounds he rarely discussed, knew the guilt that success had never erased. When she finally spoke, her voice was gentle. "What's her name?" William realized something. He didn't know. Not officially. Not yet. He knew Noah's name because Jasmine had spoken it. He knew Ava's. But Jasmine? No. He had paid for her groceries without even asking. A strange smile touched his face. Actually, what? I don't know. Margaret sighed. That makes this difficult. William looked down, then remembered something. The receipt, the transaction, the register, the cashier, the store cameras. There would be records. There were always records. Margaret heard the shift in his breathing. No. William smiled faintly. What? Don't do whatever you're thinking. Margaret. No. Just find out who she is. William. Please. The word hung there. Unexpected. Rare. Margaret had worked with him for 12 years. He almost never said please. Not because he was arrogant, because he was used to solving problems himself. Her resistance softened. I'll see what I can do, thank you. William, yeah? What exactly are you planning? The question lingered. William looked out at the Houston traffic moving beneath glowing streetlights. He honestly didn't know. Not yet. He only knew one thing. For the first time in years, something mattered more than board meetings, more than earnings reports, more than acquisitions, more than stock prices. A mother, 2 children, and a sentence spoken in a Walmart parking lot. Mom already ate. When William finally answered, his voice was almost a whisper. I don't think anyone's ever really seen her. Margaret remained silent. And? William stared into the darkness. And I can't stop thinking about that. He ended the call. A minute later, he climbed into his SUV. The leather seats, the luxury dashboard, the expensive silence. None of it felt important tonight. As he drove away, one thought followed him through the glowing streets of Houston. He had paid for a woman's groceries. That should have been the end of it. Instead, it felt like the beginning. And somewhere across the city, Jasmine Carter had no idea that the stranger she met at Walmart was about to change the course of his own life trying to understand hers. The next morning arrived gray and humid. Houston wore a blanket of low clouds, and traffic crawled across the freeway like a river of red brake lights. Jasmine was already awake before dawn. She always was. The alarm rang at 4:45 a.m., but she had been staring at the ceiling for almost 20 minutes before it went off. The apartment was quiet. Noah and Ava were asleep. The old air conditioner rattled in the window. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's television murmured through thin walls. Jasmine sat on the edge of her bed and checked her bank account. The screen glowed in the darkness. The number staring back at her was smaller than she wanted, larger than it would have been without the stranger from Walmart. She closed her eyes. For a moment, she thought about him. The man who had paid for her groceries. The man who looked at Ava's inhaler like it had reached into his chest and pulled something out. She still didn't know his name. Part of her was grateful. Part of her was uncomfortable. People rarely did things without wanting something. Life had taught her that. But there had been something different about him, something she couldn't explain. She pushed the thought away. There wasn't time. There was never time. An hour later, she was driving through dark streets toward the community kitchen where she worked mornings. The silver sedan rattled every time she hit a pothole. The check engine light remained permanently illuminated. The heater barely worked. The brakes squealed. But it still moved. And right now, moving was enough. By 6 o'clock, she was chopping vegetables in a crowded industrial kitchen. Steam filled the air. Metal trays clattered. Coffee brewed in giant stainless steel urns. The smell of onions and garlic lingered on everything. Around her, volunteers and workers prepared meals for hundreds of people. Some were homeless. Some were elderly. Some were families barely holding on. Jasmine moved quickly, efficiently, quietly. She always did. At 10:30, during a short break, she stepped outside through the back door. The alley behind the building was damp from overnight rain. A man sat on a milk crate near the dumpster. His name was Earl. Most people walking past him never learned that. They simply saw an old homeless man. Jasmine saw Earl. There was a difference. "Morning," she said. Earl smiled. "You got that look again." "What look?" "The tired one." She laughed softly. "That's my permanent look." Earl chuckled. Jasmine opened her lunch bag. Inside was a turkey sandwich, the only real meal she'd planned for herself all day. Without hesitation, she handed half of it to Earl. He frowned. "You need this more than I do." "No. You always say that, and you always argue." Earl shook his head, but accepted the sandwich, because both of them understood something. Sometimes kindness wasn't about abundance. Sometimes it came from people who had almost nothing. Across the city, William Harrington was staring at a report. His office occupied the top floor of Harrington Medical Holdings. Glass walls overlooked downtown Houston. The furniture cost more than most cars. The view stretched for miles. Yet William barely noticed any of it. A thick file sat open on his desk. Margaret Collins had delivered it personally. "You're going to hate this," she said. William looked up. "What do you mean?" Margaret dropped the folder in front of him. "Because everything in there is going to remind you of someone." William already knew who. His mother. He opened the file. The first page read, "Jasmine Carter, age 32, single mother, Houston, Texas." He continued reading, and with every page his chest grew heavier. Former nursing student, top academic performance, special interest in pediatric care. Education interrupted 6 years earlier. Reason, daughter's medical condition and financial hardship. William stopped, read the sentence again, then continued. Night shifts at community kitchen, daytime grocery delivery work, no child support. No family assistance, no savings, no history of government complaints, no criminal record, no debt beyond basic survival expenses. Margaret sat across from him quietly, watching, waiting. William turned another page, then another, then another. The deeper he went, the worse it became. Not because Jasmine had failed, because she hadn't. Every report showed the same thing. She worked, she sacrificed, she endured, and somehow remained kind. There were notes from former professors. One in particular caught his attention. Exceptional potential, natural caregiver, would have been one of our strongest graduates. William stared at the sentence for a long time. Would have been. Past tense. A dream frozen in place. Margaret folded her arms. There's more, William continued. Apartment at risk due to rising rent. Medical expenses ongoing. Educational opportunities available but never accessed. Scholarship eligibility confirmed multiple times. No applications submitted. William frowned. Why? Margaret sighed. Because nobody told her. The room fell silent. William looked up. What do you mean nobody told her? Margaret leaned forward. There are programs she qualifies for. Then why isn't she using them? Because she doesn't know they exist. William stared at her. Margaret continued. The scholarship programs don't contact people individually. The Housing Assistance Office doesn't coordinate with the schools. The schools don't coordinate with medical providers. The medical providers don't coordinate with community services. William's expression hardened. So all the resources are there. Yes. And she never got them. Yes. Why? Margaret gave a sad smile. Because knowing where the doors are is sometimes harder than opening them. William looked back at the file. For several moments, he said nothing. Outside the office windows, helicopters crossed the skyline. Cars flowed through downtown traffic. The city moved. The world moved. And yet Jasmine Carter remained trapped. Not because she lacked ability. Not because she lacked discipline. Not because she lacked character. But because she was exhausted. Trying to survive left no energy to navigate systems designed by people who had never worried about rent. William slowly closed the folder. His jaw tightened. He suddenly remembered all the speeches he'd heard over the years. People talking about hard work, personal responsibility, determination. As though success existed in a vacuum. As though opportunity magically introduced itself. As though every door came with a giant sign. He looked at Margaret. She's doing everything right. I know, and then why is she still drowning? Margaret didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. Because sometimes people can swim perfectly and still get dropped in the middle of the ocean. The words lingered. William turned toward the window. For the first time in years, the billion-dollar company behind him felt strangely irrelevant. Because somewhere across Houston, a woman was working 2 jobs, raising 2 children, giving away half her sandwich to a homeless man, skipping meals, ignoring her own needs, and still finding ways to help others. The file in front of him contained dozens of facts, but one detail refused to leave his mind. Not her grades, not her rent, not her work history. A single line from a community kitchen supervisor. Jasmine regularly gives portions of her own meals to clients when supplies run low. William read it twice, then a third time. His mother would have done exactly the same thing. He leaned back slowly. Something inside him shifted. The groceries had been one thing. Paying $41.83 had been easy. But this? This was different. This wasn't a temporary problem. This was a life. And for the first time, William found himself asking a question he couldn't ignore. If all these doors already existed, if Jasmine had earned every opportunity sitting behind them, then how many other people were standing exactly where she was? And how many of them would simply disappear before anyone bothered to show them the way through? Outside his office window, thunder rolled somewhere far across Houston. A storm was building, and neither William nor Jasmine realized yet that much larger storms were already on their way. 3 nights later, the rain finally arrived. Houston disappeared beneath sheets of water that turned streets into mirrors and painted every traffic light across the city in trembling reflections. The community kitchen was closing for the night. Inside, volunteers stacked trays. Industrial sinks roared. The smell of soup and coffee lingered in the humid air. Jasmine wiped down a stainless steel counter and glanced at the clock. 10:47 p.m. Too late. Again. Her shoulders ached, her feet hurt, and tomorrow would begin in less than 6 hours. Still, she smiled when Mrs. Delgado, one of the elderly volunteers, squeezed her arm. "You work too hard." Jasmine laughed softly. "Somebody has to." Mrs. Delgado shook her head. "No, somebody chooses to." The older woman pointed toward a tray of leftover rolls. "Take some home." Jasmine hesitated. There were 6 rolls left. Enough for breakfast. Enough for Noah and Ava. She nodded. "Thank you." Outside, rain hammered the parking lot. Thunder rolled somewhere above the city. Jasmine pulled her thin jacket tighter and stepped into the night. The old silver sedan waited near the curb. She was halfway there when she heard something. A voice. Weak. Strained. At first she thought it was the wind. Then she heard it again. "Help." Jasmine stopped. Across the street, near a bus stop shelter, a figure was sitting awkwardly on the wet pavement. Most cars passed without slowing. Headlights swept across the scene and disappeared. Nobody stopped. Nobody looked twice. Jasmine looked toward her car, then toward the bus stop. Home waited 20 minutes away. Noah and Ava were asleep. She was exhausted. So exhausted she could barely think. The smart choice would have been getting in the car. Driving home. Sleeping. Pretending she hadn't heard anything. Instead, she crossed the street. Rain soaked her immediately. By the time she reached the shelter, her hair clung to her face. Her shoes squished against the pavement. The man looked to be in his 70s, white-haired, well-dressed, the kind of man who didn't belong at a bus stop at 11 o'clock at night. One of his legs was twisted awkwardly beneath him. His umbrella lay several feet away. "Sir?" The man looked up. His face was pale, embarrassed, frustrated. "I slipped." Jasmine crouched beside him. "Did you hit your head?" "No." "You sure?" "I think so." The rain intensified. Water streamed from the edge of the shelter roof. Cars continued passing, ignoring them. The old man attempted to stand. A sharp wince crossed his face. "No." Jasmine gently touched his shoulder. "Don't." The man stopped. For several seconds, they sat in silence while rain drummed against metal and glass. Then Jasmine pulled off her jacket. The old man frowned. "What are you doing?" "You need this. You'll get soaked." She smiled. "I'm already soaked." Without waiting for permission, she draped the jacket over his shoulders. The old man stared at her, confused, almost offended, then touched by something he couldn't quite name. "You don't even know me." Jasmine shrugged. "You looked like you needed help." The answer was so simple that it left him speechless. She pulled out her phone, called emergency services, stayed beside him, waited. Minutes passed. Rain continued falling. The old man studied her quietly. She looked exhausted. Her shoes were worn. Her hands showed the marks of physical labor. Yet she never once complained. Never once checked the time. Never once acted inconvenienced. Finally, he asked, "What's your name?" "Jasmine. I'm Henry." She smiled. "Nice to meet you, Henry." The old man almost laughed. Most people his age introduced themselves with titles, achievements, former careers, entire biographies. This woman reduced everything to a first name, as though people mattered more than status, as though humanity came before hierarchy. It had been a long time since anyone treated him that way. The ambulance arrived 15 minutes later. Paramedics examined him. Minor injury, nothing serious, but they insisted on taking him for observation. Before climbing into the ambulance, Henry looked back at Jasmine. Rainwater ran down her face. Her jacket remained around his shoulders. "Your family is waiting." The statement surprised her. "How'd you know?" "The way you keep checking the time." For a moment, something vulnerable appeared in her eyes, then disappeared. "My kids." Henry nodded. "How old?" 9 and 6. A faint smile touched his face. "You should go home." She laughed. "I was planning on it." The paramedics helped him inside. Before the doors closed, Henry spoke again. "Thank you." Jasmine waved dismissively. "Get some rest." Then the ambulance drove away. She stood there alone in the rain, cold, tired, without a jacket, and somehow still worried more about a stranger than herself. Across town, Henry Harrington sat in a hospital room just after midnight. A nurse adjusted his blanket. Monitors beeped softly nearby. His leg would be fine. The fall had scared everyone more than it hurt him. His phone rang. "William." Henry stared at the screen. Their relationship had always been complicated, not hostile, just distant. Two stubborn men who loved each other but rarely knew how to say it. He answered. "Hello, you okay?" Henry smiled slightly. News traveled fast. "I've been better." "What happened?" "I fell." A pause. Then William sighed. "You should have called me." "I know." Silence lingered. Then Henry surprised himself. There was a woman. William frowned. "What?" "A woman helped me." The billionaire leaned back in his chair. The city lights glowed beyond his office windows. "Okay." Henry stared toward the dark hospital ceiling. "She stayed in the rain." "What?" "She gave me her jacket." William listened. Something about his father's voice felt different, thoughtful, almost emotional. Henry continued. "She looked exhausted." "So?" She still stopped. The older man swallowed. Most people didn't. The room grew quiet. Then Henry added one final detail. "A black woman." William frowned. The description struck him immediately. Not because of race, because Houston was large. And yet something in his chest stirred. A strange instinct. The same instinct he'd felt at Walmart. What was her name? Jasmine. Everything stopped. William sat upright. "What did you say?" "Jasmine." His pulse quickened. For several seconds he couldn't speak. Across the line, Henry noticed. "Do you know her?" William stared through the office glass. Toward the city stretching into darkness. Toward countless lives unfolding beneath the storm. And suddenly he realized the woman he couldn't stop thinking about had just crossed paths with his father. Without knowing who he was. Without knowing who William was. Without expecting anything in return. She had simply helped. Because someone needed help. The realization hit harder than any report Margaret had delivered. Because now the file wasn't just information, it was proof. Jasmine Carter wasn't kind when people were watching. She was kind when nobody was. And that changed everything. "What is it?" Henry asked quietly. William looked out at the rain sliding down his office windows, then answered honestly. "I think you just met the strongest woman in Houston." Neither man spoke after that. Outside, thunder echoed across the city, and somewhere in a small apartment, Jasmine tucked Noah and Ava beneath warm blankets, never realizing that the old man she'd rescued from the rain carried the same last name as the billionaire who couldn't stop thinking about her. The storm outside would pass by morning. The one gathering around their lives was only beginning. For 3 days, Houston basked under clear skies. The rain disappeared. The roads dried. The city returned to its usual rhythm of traffic, construction noise, and endless movement. But Jasmine Carter's life never slowed down. Monday blended into Tuesday. Tuesday dissolved into Wednesday. Every day looked nearly identical. Wake before sunrise. Get Noah ready for school. Make sure Ava remembered her inhaler. Drive to work. Serve meals. Deliver groceries. Return home. Help with homework. Sleep. Repeat. The routine wasn't glamorous. It wasn't inspiring. It was survival. And survival left little room for anything else. On Thursday evening, Jasmine sat at the tiny kitchen table inside her apartment. The room smelled faintly of spaghetti sauce and laundry detergent. Noah was doing math homework. Ava colored quietly beside him. The television murmured in the background. For a few precious minutes, everything felt normal. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps. Not friendly, not casual, official. Jasmine immediately felt her stomach tighten. Nobody knocked on her door at 8:30 at night with good news. She stood, walked toward the door, looked through the peephole, and froze. Ronald Pierce, the landlord, a thick man in his late 50s, expensive watch, expensive shoes, cheap smile, the kind of man who always smelled faintly of cologne and greed. Jasmine opened the door halfway. "Mr. Pierce?" "Evening." His smile never reached his eyes. "What can I do for you?" The landlord glanced around the apartment, surveying it the way people inspect property. Not homes. Property. There was a difference. "I came by personally." Jasmine already hated where this conversation was heading. "About?" His smile widened. "The building." She said nothing. He continued. "As you know, the neighborhood's changing. Outside, the sounds of passing traffic drifted through the open hallway window. Jasmine folded her arms. "Okay, we have investors interested." There it was. The word. Investors. Whenever landlords said investors, tenants usually suffered. "We're planning renovations." Her heartbeat quickened. "What kind of renovations?" "Major ones." His voice remained smooth. Practiced. Professional. Like someone delivering bad news often enough to become comfortable with it. New flooring. Updated appliances. Exterior improvements. Jasmine stared at him, and Ronald finally pulled an envelope from beneath his arm. White. Official. Threatening. The kind of envelope nobody wanted. Her pulse accelerated. And unfortunately, that means current leases are being reviewed. The hallway suddenly felt colder. Jasmine already knew. Before he handed her the paper. Before she opened it. Before she read a single word. She knew. Ronald extended the envelope. 30-day notice. The words landed like a hammer. Behind her, Noah looked up from the table. His pencil stopped moving. Ava lowered her crayons. Silence filled the apartment. Heavy. Dangerous. Jasmine took the envelope. Opened it. Read it once, then again. Then a third time. The words never changed. Lease termination. Property redevelopment. Vacate within 30 days. 30 days. Not 3 months. Not 90 days. 30. The landlord kept talking. Something about opportunities. Something about market value. Something about rising property taxes. Jasmine barely heard him. Her eyes remained fixed on the notice. 30 days. 30 days to find another apartment. 30 days to move. 30 days to somehow afford a housing market she already couldn't afford. 30 days to uproot Noah. 30 days to uproot Ava. 30 days. When Ronald finally stopped speaking, Jasmine looked up. "Where exactly do you expect us to go?" For a moment, genuine discomfort crossed his face. Only a moment. Then it vanished. "That's not really my responsibility." The sentence made her chest ache. Not because it surprised her, because it didn't. That was the worst part. She had expected it. Ronald adjusted his jacket. "If something opens up, I'll let you know." The lie hung between them. Both knew he wouldn't. Then he nodded politely and left. Just like that. 30 days delivered. Life altered. Door closed. Footsteps disappeared down the hallway. The apartment fell silent. Noah spoke first. "Are we moving?" Jasmine turned around slowly. Her children were staring at her, waiting, trusting, the way children always did, as if mothers could solve anything, as if mothers knew everything, as if mothers never felt terrified. Jasmine forced a smile, the same smile she'd worn in Walmart, the same smile she'd worn through countless impossible moments. "We'll figure it out." Noah didn't answer. He simply nodded, but his eyes remained worried. Far older than 9 years should allow. Later that night, after both children were asleep, Jasmine sat alone at the kitchen table. The eviction notice rested beside an unpaid electric bill. The overhead light buzzed softly. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, distant sirens echoed through the city. Jasmine stared at the paper. 30 days. She grabbed a calculator, started running numbers, again and again and again. Every version ended the same way. There wasn't enough money. No matter how she rearranged the math, no matter how many hours she worked, no matter how little she slept. There simply wasn't enough. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Soft, unexpected. She frowned. Almost midnight. Who could? The door opened slightly. Noah stood there, barefoot, holding something behind his back. "Baby?" He walked toward the table, quietly, then placed a small plastic piggy bank beside her. The piggy bank was scratched, faded, missing one ear. Years of allowance money, birthday money, loose change, treasures collected by a child. Jasmine stared at it, unable to speak. Noah looked down. "I've been saving." Her throat tightened instantly. "No." I counted. His voice was serious, businesslike. The way little boys try to sound brave when they're scared. "There's $47. Jasmine covered her mouth. Noah continued. "Maybe it helps." The room blurred. Not because of tears, because of love. The unbearable kind. The kind that hurts because it's beautiful. The kind parents spend their entire lives trying to protect, and somehow receiving. Jasmine reached for him, pulled him close, held him tightly, too tightly. He hugged her back. "I'm sorry." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Noah frowned. For what? Jasmine couldn't answer. For the apartment, for the money, for the fear, for the childhood he was losing piece by piece, for all of it. Instead, she simply kissed the top of his head. "You don't need to save us." Noah leaned against her shoulder. "You're always saving us." The sentence shattered something inside her. A few miles away, William Harrington sat in his office reading another report. Margaret had sent additional information: housing status, financial records, school information, everything. He wasn't looking for reasons to help anymore. He was looking for reasons not to, and finding none. His phone buzzed. "Margaret." He answered immediately. "What's wrong?" Margaret exhaled. "The landlord." William sat upright. "What about him?" "He's terminating leases." A cold feeling spread through William's chest. Jasmine's included. The room became very quiet. Outside his office window, downtown Houston glittered beneath the night sky. Thousands of lights, thousands of lives, thousands of people. Yet William could only think about one apartment, one mother, 2 children. How long? 30 days. William stood, walked toward the window. His reflection stared back at him, older than he felt, tired in ways success never fixed. 30 days. His mother had received a notice like that once. He remembered. Boxes, fear, arguments whispered after midnight, the humiliation of not knowing where you'd live next month. He remembered all of it. Margaret spoke carefully. "William." "What?" "Don't do anything reckless." He almost laughed. Too late. Because for the first time in years, something inside him had stopped calculating risk and started listening to his heart. Far across Houston, Jasmine sat at a kitchen table holding a $47 piggy bank and trying not to cry. And William Harrington stared out at the city, realizing that the woman who never asked for help was about to need more than determination. Much more. The clock on his office wall ticked toward midnight. 30 days. The countdown had begun, and neither of them knew that the next door opening in Jasmine's life would come from the last person she expected. The eviction notice sat on Jasmine's kitchen table for 4 days. She moved it from one corner to another, folded it, unfolded it, placed bills on top of it, then removed them again. But no matter where she put it, the paper seemed to follow her. 30 days. The number haunted every room of the apartment, every meal, every drive to work, every glance at Noah and Ava. 30 days. By Monday afternoon, she had already called 6 apartment complexes. 3 never returned her calls. 2 had waiting lists. 1 required a security deposit larger than her entire savings account. Each conversation ended the same way: polite rejection, polite impossibility, polite reminders that poverty came with an expiration date. By the end of the week, exhaustion had settled deep into her bones, the kind that sleep couldn't fix, the kind that came from carrying too many worries at once. That Friday afternoon, while delivering groceries across the city, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. But something made her answer. "Hello? Ms. Carter?" The voice was professional, female, calm. "Yes. My name is Margaret Collins." Jasmine frowned. She didn't recognize the name. "I'm calling because I believe there are several educational and housing programs you may qualify for." Immediately, her guard went up. Another sales pitch. Another organization looking for publicity. Another stranger trying to tell her how to live. "I'm not interested. Please don't hang up." Jasmine sighed. She glanced at the delivery address in front of her. She was already behind schedule. What is this about? Margaret chose her words carefully. "You attended Houston Community College 6 years ago." Jasmine froze. Her fingers tightened around the phone. How did this woman know that? You were studying nursing. The silence stretched. Margaret continued. You completed 3 semesters with exceptional academic performance. Jasmine leaned against her car. The memory hurt more than she expected. She hadn't spoken about nursing school in years. Dreams became painful when left untouched too long. What do you want? I want to make sure you know about opportunities that already belong to you. The statement caught Jasmine off guard. What does that mean? Margaret opened a folder William had reviewed 3 times. There is a scholarship program for returning nursing students. Jasmine laughed. A short, bitter laugh. I can't afford nursing school. The scholarship covers tuition. Silence. Margaret continued. Books. Another pause. Clinical fees. Jasmine stared through her windshield. What? It covers everything. Her heart began beating faster, dangerously faster. Because hope was dangerous. Hope led to disappointment. She had learned that lesson years ago. There has to be a catch. There isn't. Nothing is free. Margaret smiled sadly. Neither woman could see it. No, it isn't free. What does that mean? It means you already earned it. Jasmine didn't respond. Traffic moved around her. The afternoon sun reflected off nearby buildings. Somewhere a siren wailed. The city continued. But inside the car, time seemed to slow. Margaret turned another page. There are additional resources? Jasmine laughed again, this time without humor. Of course there are. There are. What kind? Childcare support. Jasmine closed her eyes. Stop. Housing assistance. Please. Medical programs for children with chronic respiratory conditions. The words hit harder than expected. Ava. The inhaler. The emergency room visits. The fear. Margaret lowered her voice. These programs already exist, Ms. Carter. Jasmine swallowed, then whispered something she hadn't intended to say out loud. Then where were they? Silence. The question hung between them. Raw, painful, real. Where were they when Ava couldn't breathe? Where were they when tuition bills arrived? Where were they when she dropped out of nursing school? Where were they when she worked double shifts? Where were they when she skipped meals? Where were they? Margaret had no perfect answer, because the truth was ugly. The programs existed, the information existed, the opportunities existed. Nobody connected them. Nobody explained them. Nobody showed her the door. They were always there, Margaret admitted softly. Jasmine looked out her windshield. A man crossed the street carrying a briefcase. 2 teenagers laughed near a bus stop. Life moved effortlessly for some people. Meanwhile, she had spent years fighting for every inch. And now a stranger was telling her that some of the answers had existed all along. The realization made her angry. Not relieved. Angry. What kind of game is this? No game. Then why are you calling? Margaret hesitated. William had specifically instructed her not to reveal his involvement. Not yet. Because someone believes you deserve the chance. The sentence irritated Jasmine immediately. Deserve? Yes. She shook her head. No. Margaret frowned. What do you mean? I don't want somebody deciding what I deserve. The response surprised even herself. But once it started, she couldn't stop. I don't need saving. I know. You don't. I do. No, you don't. Jasmine's voice cracked slightly. Years of pride. Years of exhaustion. Years of carrying everything alone. All pressing against the surface. You people always think money fixes everything. Margaret remained calm. This isn't about money. Then what is it about? It's about access. The word landed differently. Access. Not charity. Not pity. Access. Margaret continued. The scholarship isn't mine. The housing program isn't mine. The medical assistance isn't mine. They already belong to the system. She paused. The only thing being offered is information. Jasmine sat quietly, because deep down, she knew the distinction mattered. A lot. For several moments, neither woman spoke. Then Margaret asked gently, if someone showed you a door that had always been unlocked, would walking through it make you weak? Jasmine didn't answer, because she honestly didn't know. After years of surviving alone, accepting help felt suspicious, like surrender, like failure, like admitting she couldn't do it herself. Yet another part of her whispered something different. What if survival wasn't supposed to be this hard? That night, she sat alone at the kitchen table again. The eviction notice remained beside the bills. But now another envelope sat beside it. Margaret had emailed scholarship information, housing information, program information, pages and pages of possibilities. Jasmine stared at them, then at the eviction notice, then back again. Two futures sitting side by side, fear on one side, hope on the other. Neither felt entirely real. Across the city, William sat in his office waiting. Margaret had updated him, told him everything, including Jasmine's anger. Oddly, that made him smile. His mother would have reacted the same way. Pride wasn't stubbornness. Not always. Sometimes it was the last thing poverty couldn't take from you. His phone buzzed. A message from Margaret. She didn't say yes. William stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. But she didn't say no either. For the first time in days, William leaned back and exhaled. Outside his office window, Houston glittered beneath the night sky. And somewhere in a small apartment, Jasmine Carter sat staring at an opportunity she had spent years believing was gone forever. She wasn't ready to trust it. Not yet. But for the first time since receiving the eviction notice, she wasn't staring only at a wall. She was staring at a door. And doors had a way of changing everything. For 3 days, Jasmine carried the scholarship information everywhere she went, folded inside her purse, between receipts, beside grocery lists, under unpaid bills. She never filled out the application. Not yet. Every time she opened the paperwork, fear arrived first. Not fear of failure, fear of hope. Hope demanded vulnerability. Hope asked people to believe in futures they couldn't see. And Jasmine Carter had spent years surviving one day at a time. Survival was familiar. Dreams were dangerous. Still, something had changed. For the first time in years, she caught herself imagining things. Walking through hospital hallways wearing nursing scrubs, helping children, providing care, building a life where every dollar wasn't already spoken for before it arrived. The image frightened her, because it felt possible, and possible was much harder to ignore than impossible. Thursday evening arrived hot and humid. The apartment felt stuffy. Ava sat on the couch watching cartoons. Noah worked quietly at the kitchen table. Jasmine reheated leftovers while mentally calculating bills. Rent, utilities, gas, medicine, always medicine, especially medicine. Ava's asthma had improved over the years, but not enough. Never enough. Every cough still carried danger. Every cold still carried risk. Every weather change brought uncertainty. Jasmine had learned to hear warning signs before doctors did. A different breathing pattern. A slight wheeze. a subtle change in energy. Mothers noticed things, especially mothers who spent years worrying. Around 9 o'clock, Ava started coughing. At first, Jasmine wasn't alarmed. Then she heard it again and froze. That sound, the deeper one, the tighter one, the one she hated. She immediately crossed the room, placed a hand against Ava's forehead. No fever. Good. Then she listened. The wheeze was faint. But there. Baby? Ava looked up. I'm okay. The words were brave. Too brave. Children often said they were okay long before they actually were. Jasmine grabbed the inhaler, administered a treatment, waited. Usually improvement came quickly. This time, it didn't. The knot in her stomach tightened. By 10 o'clock, the wheezing had worsened. Noah noticed. He always noticed. The boy had spent years reading the emotional weather inside their apartment. Mama? It's okay. But her voice lacked conviction, and Noah heard it. Ava coughed again. Longer this time. Her small shoulders rose and fell unevenly. Jasmine checked the inhaler. Again, then again. The medicine wasn't working. Panic began whispering at the edges of her thoughts. Not yet. Please, not tonight. Not now. Not when everything else was already falling apart. At 10:43, Ava struggled for a deeper breath. That was enough. Jasmine moved instantly. Years of practice. No hesitation. No uncertainty. She grabbed keys, medication, insurance card, phone, everything. Noah. The boy was already standing. Ready, alert, scared. Get your shoes. Within seconds, they were outside. The night air felt thick, heavy. Storm clouds gathered above Houston once again. Jasmine reached the car, turned the key. Nothing. Her heart dropped. No. She tried again. The engine clicked, then died. Again, and again, and again. Nothing. The old sedan had finally chosen its moment. No. Her voice cracked. Rain began falling, small drops at first, then more. Noah stood beside her holding Ava's medication bag. What do we do? For a split second, Jasmine felt completely helpless. The sensation terrified her, because mothers weren't supposed to be helpless, not when their children needed them. Then she looked toward the street. The nearest bus stop sat half a block away. Hospital route. Not fast, but possible. Possible was enough. She lifted Ava into her arms. Run. Rain intensified immediately. Within moments, all three were soaked. Streetlights reflected across wet pavement. Cars rushed past. Nobody knew what was happening. Nobody knew a mother was racing against fear. Nobody knew a little girl was struggling for breath. The bus arrived 8 minutes later. 8 minutes felt like 8 years. The driver opened the door. One look at Ava's face, one look at Jasmine's expression, and he understood. Get on. Jasmine climbed aboard. No questions, no delay. The ride felt endless. Every stop seemed personal. Every red light felt cruel. Ava leaned against her mother's shoulder, breathing shallowly. Noah sat beside them, clutching the medication bag with both hands. The boy never complained, never cried, never asked questions. He simply watched and worried. By the time they reached Memorial Children's Hospital, midnight had passed. Doctors moved quickly. Nurses moved faster. Nebulizer treatments, monitoring, medication, assessment. The familiar routine unfolded. Jasmine sat beside the bed, gripping Ava's hand. Exhaustion consumed her, the kind that lived deeper than sleep. Hours passed. Eventually, a doctor smiled. The smile Jasmine had been waiting for. She's stable. 3 words. The most beautiful words in the world. Jasmine nearly collapsed with relief. Ava would be okay. For now. The crisis had passed. But something inside Jasmine finally broke. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Quietly. The way people break after holding themselves together too long. Around 2:30 in the morning, she stepped into an empty hospital hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Vending machines glowed nearby. The corridor smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. She sank into a plastic chair, pulled out her phone, and stared at Margaret's contact information. For several seconds, she hesitated. Then she called. Not Margaret. William. The number Margaret had given her just in case. The phone rang twice, 3 times, then answered. Jasmine? He sounded awake, which somehow made her sad. Rich people apparently didn't sleep either. I shouldn't have called. William immediately sat upright. What happened? For a moment she couldn't speak. The silence told him everything. Ava? She's okay. William exhaled. Thank God. But Jasmine wasn't finished. I can't do this. The words came out flat. Empty. Dangerously empty. William listened. Rain tapped against his office windows. Because of course he was still working. Some habits never changed. I can't be a mother. Silence. I can't work 2 jobs. Another silence. I can't lose my apartment. Her voice trembled. I can't go back to school. The final sentence barely escaped. Then came the truth. The real truth. I'm tired. William closed his eyes, because he knew that tone. He remembered hearing it before. Years ago. From another woman. In another apartment. His mother. A woman who never admitted weakness until she had nothing left. William stared out across Houston's skyline, then spoke softly. My mother wanted to be a nurse. The hallway fell silent around Jasmine. What? Before I was born. His voice remained calm, measured. But life got in the way. Jasmine listened. My father left. William continued. Money disappeared. Responsibilities arrived. He swallowed. She kept the acceptance letter in a drawer for years. Jasmine closed her eyes. I didn't know that. Most people don't. William looked toward the photograph on his desk. The only one he kept. His mother. Smiling. Tired. Strong. I found the letter after she died. The confession hung in the air. Heavy. Honest. Painful. She never got another chance. Jasmine said nothing. William's voice softened further. You do. The words landed harder than she expected. Because they weren't motivational. They weren't inspirational. They weren't empty encouragement. They were grief. Given shape. Shared between strangers. My mother ran out of time. William whispered. You haven't. Tears finally appeared. Not dramatic tears. Not movie tears. Just exhaustion leaving through the eyes. For several moments neither spoke. Then William added something else. Something that would stay with her forever. Don't quit because you're scared. Silence. Quit because you truly don't want it. Another silence. But don't confuse fear with truth. The words settled deep inside her, deeper than she realized. A nurse appeared at the end of the hallway. Ava's asking for you. Jasmine wiped her eyes, managed a small laugh. Of course she is. William smiled, the first real smile all night. Go be her mom. Jasmine stood slowly. William? Yeah? For a second she searched for the right words, couldn't find them. Finally she settled on the truth. Thank you. Then the line disconnected. William remained seated in his office, the city glowing beyond the glass, rain sliding down the windows. Somewhere in Houston, a little girl was breathing easier. A tired mother was walking back toward a hospital room. And for the first time since Walmart, Jasmine Carter wasn't thinking about survival. She was thinking about possibility, which frightened her, but not as much as before, because possibility had started to sound less like a fantasy and more like a future. The application sat open on Jasmine's laptop for almost an hour before she submitted it. She read every line twice, then a third time. Not because she didn't understand it, because she was afraid. Afraid that pressing one button would make everything real. Afraid that believing again might hurt more than staying disappointed. Outside her apartment window, the city glowed beneath the evening sky. Inside, Noah was helping Ava build a tower from old cereal boxes. The television played softly in the background. Life looked ordinary, but Jasmine knew something had shifted. The future no longer felt sealed shut. Her finger hovered above the keyboard. Then she clicked. Submit. The confirmation screen appeared. Simple. Silent. Life-changing. For several seconds, she just stared. Then she laughed. A small laugh. Half relief, half disbelief. No fireworks, no dramatic music. Just a tired single mother sitting at a second-hand kitchen table realizing she had finally taken the first step toward the life she once wanted. 3 weeks later, another email arrived. Jasmine almost deleted it by accident. She was rushing between work shifts when she noticed the subject line, Second Chance Nursing Scholarship. Her hands immediately started shaking. She opened it, read the first sentence, then stopped breathing. Read it again. Congratulations. You have been accepted. The world blurred. The parking lot around her disappeared. Traffic noise faded. Everything narrowed to those words. Accepted. Not maybe. Not waitlisted. Not we'll see. Accepted. A sound escaped her throat. Half laugh, half sob. She covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. For years, she had convinced herself the dream was dead, not delayed, dead. And now suddenly someone was telling her otherwise. She sat in her car for almost 10 minutes, just staring at the screen. When she finally called Noah after school, he answered immediately. Mama? She couldn't speak at first. Mama? I got in. Silence. Then, you mean nursing school? His voice rose with excitement. Yes. Noah screamed so loudly, she had to pull the phone away from her ear. Across town, William Harrington was finishing a board meeting when Margaret texted him. 3 words. She got in. William stared at the message, then slowly smiled. The executives around the conference table continued discussing numbers, acquisitions, quarterly projections, market forecasts. William barely heard any of it. Because somewhere in Houston, a woman who almost gave up had just received a second chance. And for the first time in a long time, something felt right. The months that followed were not easy. Nothing magically transformed. Jasmine still worked, still worried, still counted every dollar, still fought exhaustion. But now every difficult day had direction. Classes began in the evenings, 3 nights a week. The campus felt strange at first, walking through the doors again, sitting in classrooms again, opening textbooks again. She felt older than many students, more tired, more cautious, but also more determined, because she knew exactly what was at stake. Noah adapted quickly. Every afternoon he finished homework before Jasmine left for class. Ava became obsessed with pretending she was already a nurse. She carried toy bandages everywhere, wrapped stuffed animals in imaginary treatment plans, laughed constantly. The apartment remained small, the bills remained stressful, but hope had moved in, and hope changed everything. A few months later, another breakthrough arrived. Housing assistance. The paperwork Margaret had helped organize was approved. Not a luxury apartment, not a miracle mansion, just a clean 2-bedroom unit in a safer neighborhood. Affordable, stable, secure. The day Jasmine received the letter, she sat on the floor and cried. Not because it was perfect, because she no longer had to wonder where her children would sleep. For the first time in years, stability entered their lives, quietly, without fanfare, like sunlight slowly filling a room. One evening, nearly a year after Walmart, William met Jasmine for coffee. Not as a billionaire, not as a benefactor, just as William. The friendship had grown carefully, respectfully. Neither crossed boundaries. Neither pretended their lives were the same. But both understood loss, and both understood sacrifice. They sat outside a small cafe as the sun lowered over Houston. Traffic drifted by. The air smelled faintly of coffee and rain. Jasmine stirred her drink. "I almost quit." William nodded. "I know." She smiled. "No. I mean recently." His eyebrows lifted. "When?" "3 months ago." William waited. The classes got harder. She laughed softly. Ava got sick. Work was crazy. The apartment move happened. I was exhausted. She looked down at her coffee. "There was a night I sat in my car after class and cried for 20 minutes. William remained silent, listening. I thought maybe I wasn't strong enough. The billionaire smiled gently. "My mother used to say something." Jasmine looked up. "What's that?" "Strength isn't the ability to carry everything." She waited. "It's carrying enough to make it one more day." The words settled between them. Simple. True. Familiar. Because they sounded exactly like something his mother would have believed. Spring arrived. Then summer. Then fall. And before either of them fully realized it, graduation day appeared. The community college auditorium wasn't impressive. The ceiling tiles were old. The chairs squeaked. The stage was small. The lighting wasn't perfect. But to Jasmine Carter, it looked more beautiful than any palace. Blue graduation gowns filled the room. Families crowded every row. Children waved handmade signs. Parents held flowers. Grandparents wiped tears. The air buzzed with anticipation. Backstage, Jasmine adjusted her gown. Her hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, from disbelief. She had imagined this moment years ago, then buried it, then mourned it, and now she was standing inside it. A volunteer handed her a program. Another checked her name. Everything felt surreal. From the audience came a familiar voice. "Mama!" "Ava." "Of course." Jasmine peeked through the curtain. There they were. Noah, now taller, older, still carrying that same serious expression. Ava, waving enthusiastically, practically vibrating with excitement. And beside them sat William, 3 rows back, exactly where he'd wanted to be. Not front row, Not center stage, not visible, just present. The ceremony began. Names were called. Applause echoed. One by one, graduates crossed the stage. Then finally, Jasmine Carter. The room seemed to stop. For a moment, she remembered Walmart. The coins, the embarrassment, the fear, the inhaler, the eviction notice, the sleepless nights, the hospital, every painful mile of the journey. Then she stood and walked. One step, then another, then another. The applause grew louder. Noah stood first, clapping harder than anyone. Ava jumped up beside him. "Mama!" The entire audience laughed warmly. Jasmine reached the center of the stage, accepted the certificate, and smiled. Not the smile she used when pretending everything was okay. Not the smile she used to protect her children. A real smile. One earned through struggle. One built from sacrifice. One carrying years of pain and triumph. She looked toward the audience, found Noah, found Ava, then found William. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. Neither needed to, because both understood something important. He had not built this achievement. She had. He had simply pointed toward a door. She was the one who walked through it. The applause continued, and for the first time in many years, Jasmine Carter felt something she had almost forgotten existed. Pride. Real pride. Not survival. Not relief. Pride. The kind nobody can give you. The kind you earn. And as she stepped off the stage holding her certificate, she had no idea that one final surprise was waiting after the ceremony. A surprise that would bring everything full circle. Back to Walmart. Back to $41.83. Back to the day two strangers changed each other's lives. The graduation ceremony ended in a blur of applause, laughter, and camera flashes. Families crowded the auditorium lobby. Children ran between folding chairs. Proud parents carried flowers. Graduates posed for photographs beneath banners and balloons. The entire building seemed brighter than it had an hour earlier. Not because of the lights, because of hope. Jasmine stood near the entrance, holding her nursing certificate against her chest. Every few seconds, she glanced down at it, still half afraid it might disappear, like a dream fading after sunrise. Ava wrapped both arms around her waist. "Mama's a nurse." She had repeated the sentence at least 20 times, each time sounding more excited. Noah stood beside them, taller now than he had been the day at Walmart. His shoulders were broader, his voice deeper, yet his eyes remained exactly the same. Thoughtful, observant, kind. The eyes of a boy who had grown up too fast, but somehow managed not to become bitter. "You did it." His words were simple, but they hit harder than any speech. Jasmine pulled him into a hug. "I couldn't have done it without you." Noah shook his head. "Yeah, you could." She laughed through tears. "No. Yes." The boy smiled. "You always do." Before Jasmine could answer, another familiar voice appeared behind them. "I think he's right." "William." Jasmine turned. There he was, standing quietly near the edge of the crowd. Dark suit, no entourage, no security, no headlines, just William. For a second, neither spoke. The moment felt too large for words, because both of them remembered where this story began. Not here, not in an auditorium, not with applause, at a Walmart checkout lane, with coins, and fear, and embarrassment, and a little girl's inhaler. William smiled. "You look official." Jasmine laughed. "I feel exhausted." "Then you're definitely a nurse." That earned a genuine laugh, the kind that comes from relief, not politeness. For several minutes they stood together while families moved around them. The noise of celebration filled the lobby, yet somehow it felt peaceful, like standing in the center of a storm that had finally passed. Then Jasmine reached into her graduation gown pocket. William noticed immediately. "What's that?" Her smile changed, softer, more emotional. She held out a small white envelope. "I've been carrying this for months." William accepted it carefully, confused. The envelope was plain, nothing written on the outside. Just his name. For a moment he thought it might be a thank you card, a graduation announcement, a photograph, something sentimental. Instead, when he opened it, he froze. Cash. Bills. Coins. Carefully counted. Carefully organized. $41.83. Exactly. Not approximately. Exactly. The same amount he had spent at Walmart. The same amount that had purchased groceries. The same amount that had purchased an inhaler. The same amount that had started everything. William stared silently, unable to move, unable to speak. Then he noticed the folded piece of notebook paper tucked beneath the money. Slowly, he unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakably Jasmine's. Neat, careful, deliberate. It contained only one sentence. "For the next mother who says she already ate." The world disappeared. The crowd vanished. The noise faded. William read the sentence again. Then again. His vision blurred. Not because he was old. Not because he was tired. Because suddenly he was back in another apartment. Another life. Another time. His mother's voice. "Mom already ate." The words echoed across decades, across loss, across success, across everything he had built trying to outrun grief. "For the next mother who says she already ate." The sentence carried understanding, not gratitude. Understanding. And somehow that meant more. Much more. William lowered the note slowly. His throat tightened. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking, had faced hostile boardrooms, economic crashes, corporate wars. Yet standing in a crowded community college hallway holding $41.83 nearly broke him. Jasmine noticed. Her eyes softened. "You saw me." The words were quiet, almost lost beneath the noise around them. William looked up. She continued. "That day at Walmart." A pause. When nobody else did. For several seconds he couldn't answer. Then finally, "I saw my mother." The truth landed gently between them. Jasmine nodded. Because she already knew. Maybe she had known for months. Maybe from the very beginning. Nearby, a familiar voice interrupted. "William." The billionaire turned. His father stood several feet away. Henry Harrington, walking with a cane, looking healthier than he had on the night Jasmine found him at the bus stop. Much healthier. Ava waved enthusiastically. "Mr. Henry!" The older man smiled. "You remembered me. I remember everybody." Henry laughed. "I believe that." He approached slowly, then looked at Jasmine. For a moment neither spoke, because both remembered the rain, the bus stop, the jacket, the ambulance, the night their lives crossed without introductions. Finally, Henry shook his head. "You know something funny?" Jasmine smiled. "What?" "I spent years thinking wealth solved problems." William immediately rolled his eyes. "Here we go." Henry ignored him, then looked back at Jasmine. "The night you helped me, you didn't know who I was." "No. You didn't know I was rich." No. You didn't know I was William's father? No. Henry nodded. Yet you stopped anyway. Jasmine shrugged. The same shrug she had given at the bus stop. The same one she gave when helping people at the community kitchen. The same one she gave whenever kindness felt obvious. You needed help. Henry laughed softly. There it is. What? The thing that keeps surprising me. Jasmine looked confused. Henry smiled. You make it sound simple. For her, it was simple. That was the point. Help when you can. Care when you can. Show up when you can. No audience required. No reward expected. The older man glanced toward William, then back at Jasmine. I need to tell you something. The billionaire immediately knew where this was going. Dad. No. Henry raised a hand. Let me say it. William fell silent. Henry turned toward Jasmine. My son spent years believing he failed his mother. Jasmine listened carefully. He became successful. Very successful. He built an empire. Created opportunities. Helped thousands of people. The older man's voice softened. But none of it mattered because he couldn't help the one person he wanted to help. William looked away, embarrassed, still uncomfortable discussing it. Even now. Henry continued. Then he met you. Silence. And for the first time in years, the older man smiled. He stopped looking backward. The words hit William harder than expected, because they were true, painfully true. For years, every achievement had been haunted by absence, every success followed by guilt, every milestone shadowed by the same thought, too late, always too late, until Walmart, until Jasmine, until Ava's inhaler, until $41.83. Jasmine looked from Henry to William, then quietly said, You didn't save me. William smiled. I know. You pointed me toward a door. A pause. I walked through it. His smile widened. Exactly. No debt, no rescue, no ownership, just dignity, just opportunity, just respect, the foundation of everything that followed. Across the lobby, people continued celebrating, taking photographs, laughing, living. Life moved forward, as it always did. Eventually, Ava tugged on Jasmine's sleeve. Mama? What is it, baby? The little girl grinned. We still going to dinner? Everyone laughed. Even William. Especially William. Because somehow that simple question felt like the perfect ending. Or maybe the perfect beginning. Jasmine nodded. Yes. Ava pointed dramatically toward William. And he's coming. William raised an eyebrow. Am I? Yes. No room for debate. No negotiation. No escape. Everyone laughed again. For the first time in many years, William realized something strange. He was looking forward to dinner. Not a charity event, not a gala, not a board meeting. Dinner. With people who felt like family. People connected not by blood, but by kindness. And as they walked toward the exit together, sunlight spilled through the lobby windows. Warm, golden, hopeful. The same kind of light that appears after storms. The same kind of light that reminds people survival isn't the end of the story. Sometimes it's only the beginning. And none of them realized that one final conversation over dinner would bring everything together. The coins, the inhaler, the lies parents tell out of love, and the truth that had been waiting beneath the entire story all along. The restaurant wasn't fancy. It wasn't supposed to be. A small family-owned place sat on the edge of downtown Houston, beneath strings of warm patio lights. The smell of grilled chicken, fresh bread, and spices drifted through the evening air. Inside, families talked over dinner. Silverware clinked softly against plates. Waitresses moved between tables carrying trays and smiles. It felt ordinary. And that was exactly why it felt special. For most of his adult life, William Harrington had spent evenings inside places where everything was expensive. Private clubs, executive lounges, luxury restaurants. Rooms filled with people who talked about success. Tonight, he sat in a simple booth beside people who talked about life. And somehow, it felt richer. Ava sat beside him, coloring on the paper kids menu. Noah studied the dessert section as if conducting serious research. Henry leaned back comfortably. Jasmine sat across from William. The nursing certificate still rested carefully inside a protective folder beside her chair. Nobody wanted the night to end. Not yet. The waitress arrived. Orders were placed. Drinks appeared. Conversation flowed naturally. For a while, nobody discussed Walmart. Nobody discussed poverty. Nobody discussed scholarships, or nursing school, or billion-dollar companies. They simply enjoyed being together, the way families do, the way people do when they finally feel safe enough to stop surviving for a few hours. Eventually, dinner arrived. Large plates, warm food, steam rising into the air. The smell alone made Ava grin. Oh, wow. Everyone laughed. Noah immediately reached for a dinner roll. Henry pretended to compete with him. Ava declared herself the winner of a contest nobody else knew existed. For the first time all evening, William found himself laughing so hard his eyes watered. And suddenly a memory surfaced, one he hadn't thought about in years. His mother sitting across from him at a small kitchen table, watching him eat, smiling, pretending she wasn't hungry. The smile faded slightly. Jasmine noticed. "You okay?" William nodded, then slowly looked around the table. At Noah, at Ava, at Henry, at Jasmine, at the food, at the warmth, at the life. And finally said something he hadn't planned to say. "You know," the table quieted. "This isn't what I thought success would look like." Henry smirked. "That's because you're finally getting smarter." William rolled his eyes. The others laughed. But the older man wasn't joking. Not entirely. William looked down at his plate, then back at the family. "For years I thought success meant making more money." A pause. "Building bigger things. Owning more. Winning." He shook his head. "But every time I reached a goal," his voice softened. It felt empty. Nobody interrupted. Nobody needed to. Because the honesty in his voice carried enough weight. "I kept thinking if I became successful enough, maybe I'd stop missing my mother." Silence settled over the table. The gentle kind. The kind built from understanding, instead of discomfort. William smiled sadly. "Turns out, that's not how grief works." Jasmine nodded. "No. No." For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Henry surprised everyone, especially William. The older man placed his fork down, looked directly at his son, and said quietly, "Owe you an apology." The table froze. William blinked. "What?" Henry sighed. A long breath, the kind that carries years behind it. "When your mother died." He paused, struggling for words. "I didn't know how to help." William stared. The older man continued. "So I did what I always did. I worked. I focused on business. I focused on numbers. I focused on things I could control. His voice cracked slightly. I should have focused on you. William looked away, emotion moving across his face. Not anger. Not anymore. Something deeper. Older. Henry swallowed hard. For years, I thought providing money was enough. A sad smile. It wasn't. The restaurant seemed quieter suddenly, as if the world itself understood this conversation mattered. Henry looked toward Jasmine. You taught me something. She looked surprised. I did? Yes, the night you helped me in the rain. His eyes glistened. You stopped. You stayed. You cared. You didn't calculate whether it was worth your time. The older man glanced at William. I wish I'd done more of that. No one spoke, because there was nothing to add. The truth was already sitting on the table. Raw, simple, human. William eventually reached across and squeezed his father's shoulder. A small gesture, but an important one. The older man nodded. Both understood what words could not fully explain. Forgiveness had arrived quietly, without announcements, without drama, just like healing often does. The food continued. The conversation returned, lighter now, freer. Stories filled the next hour. Ava described future plans to become a veterinarian, then a doctor, then an astronaut, then maybe all three. Noah explained his dream of becoming an engineer. Henry shared embarrassing stories about William as a teenager, most of which William immediately attempted to deny. The table laughed constantly. The restaurant slowly emptied around them. Outside, evening deepened. The city lights began appearing one by one. Eventually, dessert arrived. A chocolate cake for the table. 1 slice. 6 forks. Nobody complained. In fact, it made everyone laugh harder. Because somehow sharing it felt right. Halfway through dessert, Jasmine looked at William. You know something? What? She smiled. The funny part is, he waited. If Ava hadn't needed that inhaler. William immediately understood. Neither finished the sentence, because neither needed to. One item, one small item, one moment, one decision. That was all it took. Not a miracle, not destiny, just attention. The willingness to notice, the willingness to care, the willingness to stop walking. William leaned back, thinking about Walmart, the checkout line, the coins, the embarrassment on Jasmine's face, the impatience around her, the inhaler, the memory of his mother, everything that followed, all because he noticed one thing others ignored. Not the coins, not the poverty, not the inconvenience, the sacrifice. That was what he noticed. The absence of anything for herself. The evidence of a mother choosing everyone else first. Again, and again, and again. Just like his mother had. Jasmine looked toward Noah and Ava, then quietly said, I used to think strength meant handling everything alone. William nodded. So did I. She smiled. Turns out I was wrong. The billionaire smiled back. Me too. Outside the restaurant, the night air felt warm, comfortable. The kind of evening people remember years later without knowing exactly why. Eventually, everyone stood. Goodbyes began. Cars waited outside. Life waited outside. But something had changed. Something permanent. Ava hugged William first, without hesitation, without permission, just because she wanted to. The billionaire laughed, then hugged her back. Noah followed, more reserved, but equally sincere. Henry shook Jasmine's hand, then surprised her with a hug, a real one, the kind grandparents give. Finally, only William and Jasmine remained, standing beneath the restaurant lights, the city humming quietly around them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jasmine smiled. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" She looked toward her children. "They'll never have to hear me say I already ate." William followed her gaze. Noah laughing. Ava spinning in circles. Children. Safe. Fed. Hopeful. The future stretching ahead of them. And suddenly he understood. That was the real victory. Not the scholarship. Not the apartment. Not even the nursing certificate. The real victory was ending a cycle. A cycle of sacrifice so deep it erased people. A cycle that had swallowed his mother. A cycle that almost swallowed Jasmine. A cycle that would stop here. With this family. With this generation. William smiled, his eyes shining beneath the restaurant lights. "No," he said softly. "They won't." Jasmine nodded, then climbed into the car. The doors closed. The engine started. The family drove away. William remained standing on the sidewalk, watching the taillights disappear into the Houston night. Years ago, he had stood beside a grave believing he was too late. Too late to help. Too late to matter. Too late to repay a debt of love. Tonight, he finally understood the truth. Love isn't repaid backward. It's carried forward. His mother would never sit across from him again. Never share another meal. Never see what he had become. But because she loved him, he had learned how to recognize sacrifice, how to recognize dignity, how to recognize people who were hurting quietly. And because he recognized it in Jasmine, 2 children would grow up differently. The cycle would end. The future would change. The night breeze moved softly through the city. William smiled toward the dark sky, then headed home, not to the biggest victory of his career, not to the wealth, not to the headlines, but to something infinitely more valuable: peace. Because sometimes a billionaire notices a single item in a shopping cart, and sometimes that small moment changes everything. Not because money saves a life, but because being seen does. And sometimes the most powerful words in the world are simply, "I see you. You matter. And you don't have to carry this alone." If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. Someone out there may need the reminder that kindness is never small. When Jasmine handed William that envelope with exactly $41.83 inside, it wasn't about paying back a grocery bill. It was proof that one moment of being truly seen had changed 2 lives forever. This story reminds us that dignity doesn't come from how much money someone has. It comes from how we choose to treat people when they have nothing left to give us in return. Today, think about someone who may be carrying more than they show. The next time you notice a person like Jasmine quietly struggling, don't look away too quickly. Sometimes being seen is the first step toward changing a life. If this story spoke to you, comment 1 below. And tell me this. Have you ever met someone who changed your life with one small act they probably thought you'd forget? And before you go, there's another story coming that begins with a single ordinary moment and ends in a way nobody saw coming.